James has said, last time I meant to say, why was Finch asked to open instead of batting in the middle order in tests? Um, yeah. Why was he? I think they just had a hole at opening. Look, they thought they were onto something, that he was seeing the ball so well in white ball cricket that he could sort of come in, put pressure back on other teams, change the way they play. As I said again and again, that doesn't happen. The reason the reason they probably didn't want him batting at 5 or 6 is because those are the easiest spots to fill. You don't really wanna fill it's the same with Jason Roy. You don't really wanna fill those spots with those players unless you're really sure that, they're gonna be spectacular. And the best way of looking at that is the Joss Butler experiment with England, right? Uh, it wasn't a total failure, even if you would argue, all things considered, they probably just would have been better off with Bairstow or Stokes. Sorry, Stokes, although Stokes could probably do it too. Um, and because they had Butler in that middle order, it meant that they couldn't use people like Ollie Pope further down the order. I think Ollie Pope batted 3 or 4 when he first came into the Test team, and it's easier to find players who can bat at number 5, 6, 7 than it is to find someone who can bat at 1, 2, 3, 4. And so I think in that particular situation, they thought that was something that could help. I think the other thing with Finch specifically there, Josh, was that they believed that that was what he was good at in white ball cricket. And I'd have to go back and look at his memory, but my memory is he didn't always bat opening for Victoria. I can't remember where he batted for Surrey and Yorkshire, but he certainly didn't always open for Victoria. And I think they thought, well, maybe the problem was he wasn't opening enough in first class cricket, and now he's at the best possible form of his life. We'll send him up to the top of the order, and the balls will bounce off that, incredible rubbery like bat that he seems to have, where the balls seem to bounce further than anyone else's. Um, and it didn't happen because he doesn't have a good game for red ball cricket. And it's easy to dominate white ball cricket when at most you're going to have 1 or 2 slips. It's easy to dominate white ball cricket when you can hit at 4 or 6 and there's going to be an instant bowling change, that there's fielding restrictions. It's more of a white ball cricket is more of a trying to think of the correct word, more of a formula. So once you get that formula, that's fine. Whereas Test cricket doesn't really have a formula like that, and that's why you see players who are very good in white ball cricket sometimes struggle to work out how to pace their innings and where to play their shots and what to do next, because there's no obvious thing to do. Whereas in white ball cricket, usually there is. There's the middle overs where you're knocking around all the easier things you get. So the middle overs in one-day cricket specifically. Um, you talk to international cricketers, and there's a reason. I think at one stage there was a bunch of players averaging over 70 or something in those middle overs. Um, and it's partly because the ball is older, but it's also partly because there was almost like an agreement between everyone, right? We're not going to attack that much. We're going to try and keep the run rate down, and you're not going to try and lose that many wickets, and we're going to go through that period. There's no period like that in Test cricket. I think it was on the Abhinav Mukund one, and I've heard this from other Test players as well. Especially, when they're early on, you get to 50 in first class cricket, and something kind of has to go wrong for you not to make 100. If you're a top level player, and I don't mean a Test player, but just a top level first class player, something kind of has to go wrong. You have to make a real error, or someone has to bowl you an absolute freakish delivery. Because once you're in, you're in. And you might have to face one good spell from one bowler, but it's very rare to get 4 or 5 really good bowlers in that. You go to Test cricket, and it doesn't matter if you're on 20 or if you're on 120, there's quite regularly always pressure on you. And there is no drop off, right? After you score a 50, there is no drop off of, I'm in now. Now I'll knock it around and try and get up to my 100. And so that is something alien to the white ball game. You don't get that same kind of pressure because you do get like a casual agreement between the teams of, we're not going to attack that much now, and you're not going to attack that much, and then the game will come at the other end. We'll hope that we'll have held you to what we want to hold you to, and that's how it goes. So I do think there is a very different mindset to that, and I think that doesn't translate to red ball cricket as much as maybe people would. And people who should know better keep trying it with Aaron Finch, with Alex Hales, with Josh Butler, lots of these different players sort of come through and it doesn't quite work. And I think it is that extra pressure, the extra thinking, and the fact that the ball moves more and that you have more catching fielders. All those things really do play a big part. Um, and I think that in Finch's case specifically, they probably didn't want him to bat at 4 or 5 and start, or 4, 5, or 6, and start against spin either. In a first class, or in a red ball game is my guess. But I think it was mostly that they just thought that is where he would be successful. I'm not. I think he's batted almost everywhere in first class cricket, and I'd have to go through his numbers, but I don't remember him ever being successful in any period. So I don't think the batting number was the biggest deal then.